Darling, you're just hungry for drama. I'm not doing anything behind your back. Everything's fine.
The microwave clock glowed 11:47 p.m. when I found the phone. Not Marta's usual iPhone with its cracked screen protector and coffee stains, but a sleek black device buzzing insistently under a pile of her marketing reports. My wife had rushed out 20 minutes earlier for another emergency client meeting, leaving behind her usual trail of expensive perfume and half-eaten salad. I'm Elliot Granger, though everyone calls me Eli. 42 years old, senior project manager at Hartwell Construction, and apparently the kind of husband who gets left alone on Friday nights while his wife handles crises that smell suspiciously like expensive cologne. The phone buzzed again. A text message lit up the screen. "Can't wait to have you all to myself tonight, gorgeous. The lakeside place is perfect for us." My coffee mug hit the granite countertop harder than intended. The sender was listed as V with a heart emoji, Victor Sloan. I knew that name from Marta's endless stories about her brilliant creative director at Sterling & Associates advertising agency. The same Victor she'd been mentioning with increasing frequency over the past 6 months. Another message popped up. "Tell your sister the plan is working perfectly. 5 more minutes and we'll have everything we need." My hands weren't shaking. That's what I told myself as I scrolled through the message history. Photos of expensive wine bottles, intimate restaurant shots, and worse, much worse. Pictures I definitely wasn't supposed to see, taken in places I'd never been. The front door slammed. Marta's heels clicked across the hardwood floor with military precision. "Eli, why are all the lights on?" I slipped the phone back under the reports, grabbed my coffee, and arranged my face into what I hoped looked like casual indifference. 20 years of marriage had taught me the value of strategic timing. "Just finishing some paperwork," I called back, settling into my chair as she appeared in the kitchen doorway. Marta looked stunning, as always. Perfectly styled auburn hair, designer dress that probably cost more than my monthly salary, and that practiced smile she used on difficult clients. At 38, she commanded attention in every room she entered. Boardrooms, restaurants, apparently lakeside estates I'd never heard of. "You're up late," she said, moving toward the counter where her reports lay scattered. Her fingers hesitated over the pile. "Could say the same about you. How was the emergency meeting?" "Complicated." She found the phone, palmed it smoothly. "Client changed their entire campaign strategy at the last minute. We had to scramble." "Must have been quite the scramble. You forgot your phone." For just a moment, her composure cracked. The smile faltered, and I saw something I'd never seen before in my wife's eyes. Genuine fear. "This old thing? It's just my backup. Battery died on my main phone." She was already moving toward the stairs. "I'm exhausted. Don't stay up too late." I waited until I heard the bedroom door close, then pulled out my own phone and opened the voice recorder app. If Marta was playing games, I was about to learn the rules. 20 minutes later, I heard her voice drifting down from upstairs. She was on the phone, speaking in hushed tones that carried just enough through the old house's thin walls. "Told you this was risky, Val. If he finds out before we're ready." Valerie Sutton, Marta's older sister and CEO of Pinnacle Marketing Solutions. The woman who'd made it clear from day one that her sister had married beneath her station. I crept up the stairs, avoiding the creaky third step, and positioned myself outside our bedroom door. 5 minutes to clean up the loose ends, and he's gone tomorrow," Marta was saying. "Victor has the contracts ready. Once Eli's out of the picture, we can move forward with the merger." My blood turned to ice water. "I don't care if it seems cruel, Val. He's been dead weight for years. This way everyone wins. Well, everyone who matters." There was a pause, then Marta's laugh, cold and calculating in a way I'd never heard before. "Victor's already handled the financial projections. With Eli's shares transferred to me in the divorce, we'll have controlling interest in both companies. The lakeside property deal was just the beginning." I pressed record on my phone, capturing every word. "No, he doesn't suspect anything. Poor Eli's too busy playing with his construction toys to notice what's happening in the real world. By Monday morning, he'll be served with papers. And by next Friday, we'll be announcing the merger at the shareholders' meeting." The call ended. I heard the bed creak as she settled in for the night. Probably dreaming about her new life with Victor and her sister's empire. I made it back downstairs without a sound, my mind racing. 20 years of marriage, and I'd been reduced to dead weight and loose ends. The woman I'd supported through business school, whose career I'd prioritized over my own advancement, was planning to destroy me with the casual efficiency of a quarterly budget review. But Marta had made one crucial mistake. She'd underestimated the dead weight. I spent the rest of the night in my home office making calls and sending emails. By sunrise, I'd activated a network I hadn't used since my Army days, old friends who specialized in information gathering, legal maneuvering, and strategic planning. Rex Morrison, my former sergeant and current private investigator, answered on the second ring despite the early hour. Eli, this better be good. Calling at dawn on a Saturday? It's better than good, Rex. It's war. Monday morning arrived with the kind of crisp October air that usually made me optimistic about new beginnings. Today, it felt like a countdown timer. I dressed carefully, my best Navy suit, the tie Marta had bought me for our anniversary last year, shoes polished to mirror brightness. If I was going down, I'd look professional doing it. Sterling and Associates occupied 3 floors of the Meridian Tower downtown, all glass and steel and carefully curated ambition. I'd been here dozens of times for company parties and client dinners, always as Marta's supportive husband, smiling and making small talk while she networked her way up the corporate ladder. Today, I was here for a different kind of networking. The elevator carried me to the 15th floor, where Marta's corner office overlooked the city like a general surveying a battlefield. Through the glass walls, I could see her at her desk, perfectly composed in a charcoal blazer, reviewing documents with the intensity of a surgeon planning a complex operation. She looked up as I approached, surprise flickering across her features. Eli, what are you doing here? Thought I'd surprise you with lunch plans, I said, settling into the chair across from her desk. We haven't talked much lately. I'm swamped today, maybe this weekend. Actually, I was hoping we could talk now, about the lakeside property. The pen in her hand stopped moving. What lakeside property? The one you and Victor have been using for your strategic planning sessions. The color drained from her face, but she recovered quickly. Marta had always been good under pressure. I have no idea what you're talking about. Room 237 at the Lakeside Inn, registered under V. Sloan. 3 visits in the past 2 weeks, according to the credit card records. You've been spying on me? I've been paying attention. There's a difference. She stood abruptly, moving to close her office door. Through the glass, I could see curious faces turning our way. The office grapevine was always hungry for drama. Eli, I think you're confused. Am I confused about the merger with Pinnacle, or the plan to transfer my shares? Maybe I'm confused about the part where I'm supposed to be served with divorce papers today. She froze, her hand still on the door handle. You recorded my phone call. I recorded my wife plotting to destroy my life. Seemed like the kind of thing I should document. Marta returned to her desk, but didn't sit. Instead, she leaned against it with the casual confidence of someone who just realized the game wasn't over yet. What do you want, Eli? I want to understand why 20 years of marriage is worth less than a business deal. Because that's all it ever was. Her voice was steady, matter of fact. A business deal. I needed stability while I built my career. You needed someone to make you feel important. It worked for a while. And now? Now I need something more. Someone who can match my ambition instead of holding me back. The words hit like physical blows, but I kept my expression neutral. Someone like Victor. Victor understands what it takes to succeed. He doesn't spend his evenings building model airplanes and watching old war movies. Those model airplanes paid for your MBA, and I've more than repaid that investment. She moved around the desk, closer to me. Eli, this doesn't have to be ugly. Sign the papers, take the settlement, and move on. You'll be better off without me. Maybe, but you'll be worse off without me. She laughed, the same cold sound I'd heard on the phone call. I doubt that. Then you haven't been paying attention. I stood, straightening my tie. Through the office windows, I could see Victor Sloan approaching with a folder in his hand and the confident stride of a man who thought he'd already won. Marta, you're about to learn something I picked up in the Army. The most dangerous enemy isn't the one with the biggest tool. It's the one you underestimate. Victor knocked on the door, then entered without waiting for permission. He was everything I wasn't. Tall, perfectly groomed, with a kind of easy charm that opened doors and closed deals. His smile faltered when he saw me. Eli, I didn't expect to see you here. Funny thing about expectations, Victor. They have a way of changing quickly. I walked past him toward the door, then paused. Oh, and Marta, you might want to check your email. I sent you something you'll find interesting. The elevator doors closed on their confused faces. By the time they opened the email I'd sent containing the audio recording of Marta's phone call, I was already 3 blocks away, making the first move in a game they didn't even know had started. My phone buzzed with a text from Rex. Package delivered to your office. Phase 1 complete. I smiled for the first time in days. Marta wanted to play hardball? She was about to discover that dead weight could hit back. The envelope was waiting on my desk at Hartwell Construction, thick and official-looking with the logo of Blackwood and Associates, one of the city's most aggressive law firms. My assistant, Jenny, hovered nearby with the expression of someone who'd rather be anywhere else. "It came by courier an hour ago," she said. The guy insisted I sign for it personally. I opened it while she watched, scanning the legal documents with growing appreciation for Marta's efficiency. Divorce papers, asset division agreements, and a restraining order that would keep me away from both her and Sterling and Associates. She'd moved fast, less than 4 hours from our conversation to legal action, but I'd moved faster. "Jenny, could you ask Tom to come in and see if Sarah from accounting is available?" Tom Bradley was my project foreman, a 60-year-old veteran who'd been with Hartwell longer than I'd been alive. Sarah Chen handled our financial contracts and had a memory like a steel trap. Both had been part of my early morning phone calls. They arrived together, along with Rex, who'd been waiting in the lobby. "Gentlemen, Sarah," I said, closing my office door, "we need to discuss some changes to the Morrison project." The Morrison project was a $2.3 million commercial development that had been my baby for 8 months. I'd negotiated the contracts, managed the timeline, and built relationships with every subcontractor involved. It was also the leverage I'd been quietly preparing since Saturday morning. "As of today, I'm no longer employed by Hartwell Construction," I announced. But the Morrison contracts were negotiated with specific performance clauses that transfer with key personnel. Sarah smiled, the first genuine smile I'd seen all week. "You mean the clauses that require your personal oversight for the project to remain valid?" "Exactly those clauses," Tom chuckled. "And if you're not available to provide that oversight, then Hartwell loses the contract, Morrison loses their timeline, and everyone involved loses a lot of money." Rex leaned forward. "Unless, of course, they're willing to work with your new consulting firm." "Which doesn't exist yet," I pointed out. "Actually, it does." Sarah pulled out a folder. "Granger Project Solutions, LLC, filed this morning, along with the preliminary contracts for the Morrison project transfer." I stared at her. "When did you—" "Saturday night, after you called. Tom and I have been talking about this for months. Hartwell's been taking advantage of your expertise while paying you half what you're worth. This just gave us the push we needed." Tom nodded. "Besides, half the crew would rather work for you anyway. Better pay, better projects, and no corporate politics." My phone rang. Hartwell's senior partner, probably wondering why his biggest project was suddenly in jeopardy. I let it go to voicemail. "There's more," Rex said. "I spent the weekend looking into Sterling and Associates' finances. Turns out your wife and her boyfriend have been very creative with their merger planning." He spread out a series of documents, financial records, email printouts, and what looked like surveillance photos. "Victor Sloan has been funneling Sterling's client list to Pinnacle Marketing for months. Not illegal exactly, but definitely a breach of his employment contract. And the lakeside property? It's owned by a shell company that traces back to Valerie Sutton." "They've been planning this for a while," Sarah observed. "At least 6 months," Rex confirmed. "But they made some mistakes. The shell company wasn't properly registered. Victor's been using Sterling's resources for personal business, and your sister-in-law has been making promises to investors that depend on assets she doesn't actually control yet. My shares in the construction company," I realized. "Which you can't transfer without board approval, according to the partnership agreement you signed 5 years ago." I'd forgotten about that clause, a protection mechanism Tom had insisted on when the company expanded. At the time, it had seemed like unnecessary paperwork. Now, it was a lifeline. My phone buzzed with a text from Marta. "We need to talk, now." I showed it to the group. Rex grinned. "Looks like someone just realized their plan has some holes in it." "What's the next move?" Tom asked. I looked around the room at these people who'd become more than colleagues over the years. They were taking risks for me, betting their own futures on my ability to fight back against people with more money, more connections, and more experience in corporate warfare. But they'd forgotten one crucial detail about dead weight. It's very hard to move when it doesn't want to cooperate. "We're going to give them exactly what they asked for," I said. "A clean, professional separation. Just not the kind they were expecting." I typed back to Marta. "Sterling and Associates lobby, 1 hour." Then I turned to my team, because that's what they were now, my team. and started planning the kind of counterstrike that would make my Army instructors proud. The war was just beginning. The Sterling and Associates lobby was designed to intimidate. 20-foot ceilings, marble floors, and abstract art that probably cost more than most people's cars. I'd always felt slightly out of place here, like a construction worker who'd wandered into a museum. Today, I felt right at home. Marta arrived precisely on time, flanked by Victor and a woman I didn't recognize, probably their lawyer, judging by her briefcase and carnivory smile. They'd chosen a seating area near the back, away from the reception desk and curious ears. "Eli," Marta said as I approached. "Thank you for coming. Wouldn't miss it." Victor stood as I sat down, his handshake firm and his smile practiced. "I hope we can handle this like adults." "Absolutely. Adult conversations are so much more productive than midnight phone calls." The lawyer, a sharp-featured woman in her 50s, opened her briefcase. "Mr. Granger, I'm Patricia Morse from Blackwood and Associates. I understand you received our documents this morning." "I did. Fascinating reading. Then you understand the situation. Your wife is prepared to be very generous in the settlement, provided you sign promptly and avoid any unnecessary complications." "Define unnecessary complications." Marta leaned forward. "Don't make this harder than it needs to be, Eli. Sign the papers, take the money, and move on with your life." "What money?" She blinked. "The settlement. $200,000 plus your pension and—" "Marta, I don't think you understand the situation." I pulled out my own folder, spreading documents across the coffee table with the same casual precision she'd used in her office that morning. "These are the partnership agreements for Hartwell Construction, specifically Section 12, Subsection 4, which states that shares cannot be transferred without unanimous board approval." Patricia Morse frowned, scanning the documents. "This doesn't change anything. Divorce proceedings can override—" "Actually, they can't. Not when the shares are held in a limited partnership with specific performance requirements." Victor's confidence was starting to crack. "What performance requirements?" "The ones tied to active project management and client relationships. If I'm not actively employed by the company, the shares revert to the partnership pool, and my ownership stake becomes worthless." "That's impossible," Marta said. "It's also irreversible as of this morning, when I resigned from Hartwell Construction." The silence stretched for 10 seconds before Patricia Morse found her voice. "You can't have resigned. The merger depends on those shares." "What merger?" 3 pairs of eyes stared at me. I'd just asked the question they couldn't answer without admitting to a conspiracy that could destroy all of them. "Eli," Victor said carefully, "I think there's been a misunderstanding." The misunderstanding was thinking I wouldn't notice. I pulled out my phone and set it on the table. "Would you like to hear the phone call where you and my wife discussed transferring my assets and removing me from the picture?" Marta's face went white. "You recorded a private conversation. I recorded my wife planning to defraud me. There's a difference." Patricia Morse was frantically taking notes. "Mr. Granger, what exactly do you want?" "I want honesty. I want my wife to admit that she's been planning this betrayal for months. I want Victor to acknowledge that he's been stealing client information from his own company, and I want all 3 of you to understand that I'm not the helpless sufferer you thought you were dealing with." "This is extortion," Victor said. "This is consequences." I stood, gathering my documents. "You have 48 hours to withdraw the divorce papers and the restraining order. After that, the recording goes to Sterling's board of directors, along with documentation of Victor's unauthorized use of company resources and client information." "You can't prove any of that," Marta said, but her voice lacked conviction. "Actually, I can. Victor, you might want to check your company credit card statements, specifically the charges for the Lakeside Inn and the restaurants where you've been entertaining my wife. All paid for with Sterling's money, all documented, all completely inappropriate for a senior executive." Victor's face flushed red. Those were legitimate business expenses. For meetings with the wife of a potential business partner? Meetings that resulted in the theft of confidential client information? I don't think Sterling's board will see it that way. I walked toward the lobby exit, then turned back. "Oh, and Marta? You might want to call your sister. Pinnacle's investors are going to be very disappointed when they realize the merger assets don't actually exist." The elevator doors closed on their stunned faces. As the car descended, I felt something I hadn't experienced in months. The satisfaction of a plan perfectly executed. My phone buzzed with a text from Rex. Phase 2 complete. You should see the evening news. I smiled. The war was far from over, but the first battle was mine. The Channel 7 Evening News led with a story about corporate merger irregularities at two prominent local marketing firms. I watched from my hotel room. I checked out of the house that morning, leaving Marta to explain my absence however she chose, as the anchor discussed alleged improprieties and questions about asset valuations. Rex had been busy, very busy. My phone rang as the story concluded. Marta's number. "You son of a witch," she said without preamble. "You leaked this to the press." I provided factual information to a journalist who asked specific questions about corporate transparency. This could destroy everything we've worked for. Everything you've worked for? I was just the dead weight, remember? There was a long pause. When she spoke again, her voice was different, smaller, more vulnerable than I'd heard in years. "Eli, we can fix this. Call off your dogs and we can work something out." "What kind of something?" "A real settlement. Fair division of assets, no restraining orders, no ugly court battles." "And Victor?" Another pause. "Victor is no longer part of the equation." I almost felt sorry for him. Almost. "What changed your mind?" "Sterling's board called an emergency meeting for tomorrow morning. Victor's been suspended pending an investigation into his expense reports and client information security." That was fast. Corporate boards don't like surprises, Eli. Especially surprises that make them look stupid in the press. I walked to the hotel window, looking out at the city lights. Somewhere down there, Victor Sloan was probably having the worst night of his professional life. Somewhere else, Valerie Sutton was explaining to very angry investors why her guaranteed merger was falling apart. And here I was, in a hotel room that cost more per night than I used to spend on entertainment in a month, feeling something that might have been satisfaction if it weren't so hollow. "Marta, can I ask you something?" "What?" "When did you stop loving me?" The question surprised us both. It certainly wasn't part of my strategic plan, but it had been nagging at me since our conversation in her office. "I don't know," she said quietly. "Maybe I never did. Maybe I just loved the idea of being married, of having someone stable while I figured out what I really wanted. And what do you really want? I wanted to be important, to matter, to build something that would last. We could have built something together." "No, we couldn't. You're a good man, Eli, but you're not ambitious. You're content with small victories and quiet satisfaction. I need more than that." "You need what Victor offered?" "I needed what I thought Victor offered. Turns out he's just as weak as everyone else when things get complicated." The honesty was refreshing, even if it hurt. "So, where does that leave us?" "It leaves us getting divorced, but like adults instead of enemies. You keep your construction business, I keep what's left of my career, and we both pretend the last 6 months never happened." "What about the recording?" "What about it? You've already used it to destroy Victor's reputation and tank the merger. Isn't that enough revenge for you?" I considered this. The recording had served its purpose. It had protected me from their conspiracy and given me leverage when I needed it most. But it was also evidence of the most painful betrayal of my life, preserved in digital clarity for as long as I chose to keep it. "I'll think about it," I said. "Think fast. The longer this drags out, the more damage we all take." She hung up, leaving me alone with the city lights and the strange emptiness that comes after winning a battle you never wanted to fight. My phone buzzed with a text from Tom. "New contract signed. Granger Project Solutions officially in business. Congratulations, boss." Another text from Sarah. "First client meeting scheduled for Monday. You're going to need an office." And finally one from Rex. "Bar downstairs, victory drink, you earned it." I looked around the hotel room. Expensive, impersonal, temporary. In the morning, I'd need to find an apartment, set up a real office, and start building a business from scratch at 42 years old. But tonight, I was going to have a drink with an old friend and celebrate the fact that dead weight, when properly motivated, could move mountains. 3 weeks later, I was signing papers in the conference room of Morrison and Associates, finalizing the contract that would make Granger Project Solutions a legitimate player in the local construction market. Tom sat beside me, officially my partner now, grinning like a man who just won the lottery. "Gentlemen," said James Morrison, shaking our hands across the polished table, "I think this is the beginning of a very profitable relationship." Outside, October had given way to November, and the first snow of the season was dusting the city streets. Through the conference room windows, I could see the construction site where my crew, our crew, was already breaking ground on Morrison's new retail complex. My phone buzzed with a text from Rex. "You need to see the news. Now." I excused myself and stepped into the hallway, pulling up the Channel 7 website on my phone. The headline made me smile. Local marketing executive pleads guilty to corporate fraud. Victor Sloan's mugshot stared back at me from the screen. According to the article, he'd been arrested on charges of embezzling company funds and selling client information to competitors. The investigation had uncovered a pattern of financial irregularities going back 2 years. Sterling and Associates had fired him. Pinnacle Marketing had canceled their merger plans, and Victor was facing up to 5 years in prison. "Couldn't have happened to a nicer guy," I muttered. My phone rang. Marta's number. "Did you see the news?" she asked. "Just now. How are you holding up?" "Better than expected. Sterling's board asked me to take over Victor's position while they search for a permanent replacement." "Congratulations." "It's not exactly how I planned to get promoted, but I'll take it." There was an awkward pause. We'd been having these conversations for weeks now, polite, professional discussions about asset division and legal paperwork. The anger had faded, replaced by something that felt almost like friendship. "Eli, I owe you an apology." "You don't owe me anything." "Yes, I do. I treated you terribly. I convinced myself that you were holding me back, but the truth is I was just scared of commitment. Scared of being ordinary." "You're not ordinary, Marta. You never were." "Neither are you. I just couldn't see it." I walked to the window, watching the snow fall on the construction site below. "For what it's worth, I hope the promotion works out for you. And I hope your business succeeds. You deserve good things, Eli." After she hung up, I stood there for a few minutes, processing the conversation. The divorce papers had been signed 2 weeks ago, amicable, fair, and surprisingly painless once the lawyers stopped trying to complicate everything. We divided our assets, sold the house, and gone our separate ways like adults. It should have felt like victory. Instead, it felt like the end of a chapter I wasn't quite ready to close. Tom appeared in the hallway. "Everything okay?" "Yeah, just tying up loose ends." "Good, because we've got a problem. The city inspector wants to meet with you about the Morrison project permits." "What kind of problem?" "The kind that requires the owner to personally vouch for the contractor's reliability." I grinned. "Sounds like a job for the boss." We walked back toward the conference room where James Morrison was waiting with a stack of permits and a concerned expression. This was my life now. Solving problems, managing projects, building something from the ground up. It wasn't the life I'd planned, but it was mine. 6 months later, I was standing in the lobby of the completed Morrison retail complex, watching shoppers stream through the doors of stores I'd helped build. Granger Project Solutions had grown to 12 employees, with 3 major projects in development, and a reputation for delivering quality work on time and under budget. Tom approached with a newspaper under his arm. "You're going to want to see this." The business section featured a story about Pinnacle Marketing's bankruptcy filing. Valerie Sutton had been forced to sell her company to pay off investors who'd sued over the failed Sterling merger. According to the article, she was now working as a consultant for a firm in Portland, a significant step down from CEO. "Karma," Tom observed. "Something like that." My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "Congratulations on your success. You earned it. M." I smiled and deleted the message without replying. Some chapters were better left closed. "Ready for the next project?" Tom asked. I looked around the lobby one more time, at the marble floors we'd installed, the lighting fixtures we'd positioned, the architectural details we'd crafted with precision and pride. It was good work, honest work. The kind of thing that would still be standing long after all of us were gone. "Yeah," I said. "I'm ready." We walked out into the afternoon sunshine. 2 middle-aged men who'd learned that sometimes the best revenge is simply refusing to stay down when life knocks you over. Behind us, the building stood solid and permanent, a testament to the fact that dead weight, when properly applied, could support anything.